Out of Joe Rogan's closest friends, there's one man that really stands out. One man that wasn't born in the US and that's a convicted felon that cannot legally own a gun or vote in elections. That man is Joey Diaz. Jose Antonio Diaz was born in Havana, Cuba in 1963, 4 years after the revolution that was led by Fidel Castro. Cuba was once a prosperous country with good living standards and close ties to the USA. But after Castro's revolution of 1959, the US cut ties with Cuba. Because of this and the communist ideology of Castro, Cuba fell into a state of mass poverty. This led millions of Cubans to seek refuge in another country. Joey's father died when he was only 3 years old and living under Fidel's tyranny in Cuba. Joey's mother knew that they had to leave. And so in the 1970s, Joey would become one of the millions of Cubans that would migrate from the island to the USA. Joey would end up living in North Bergen, New Jersey. But when he was only 16 years old, he would discover his mother's lifeless body on the kitchen floor when he was high on LSD.
And then I got up like at 3 and I looked at the door and the light was still on. And then I went back into my acid haze and I heard her calling me. Jose Antonio. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going downstairs. I'm not hungry. The acid, I'm not hungry, so why am I gonna go downstairs? She's gonna see that my eyes are dilated. Fuck it. So she called my name a few more times, and I just played possum, and then I went back to sleep, and then I got up again a little while later, and the hallway light was off. So I said, it's safe. Let me go out there and piss. So I went out to my bathroom. I went to piss. When I went to piss, I seen her door was still open. And I'm like, fuck, I gotta face her now, because she's gonna hear that I went to the bathroom. I go, fuck it, let me go downstairs. I heard the water on, like she was washing dishes or some shit. And I walked down the stairs real slowly, and when I went around the kitchen, I looked into the kitchen. I didn't see her by the dishes, but when I looked down, she was on the floor dead. Her arm was purple. And I went over to her and I touched her pulse, and I said, I fucking knew she would never find out I got left back. You think I'm fucking kidding you? That's the first thing that came to my mind with my mother on the floor. I'm like, she never found out I got left back. I fucking knew it. Then I dialed 911, I started crying like a pussy. That's a true fucking story.
After the death of his mother, Joey was pretty much an orphan, but was taken in by 4 households that would take care of him, although he never repaid the favor by living a moral life. He descended into a life of crime that would go on for years. Joey started using hard drugs in his teens and stealing things from time to time, but this wasn't a big deal compared to what he would end up going to prison for. On the surface, Joey seems like a hilarious comedian with a troubled past, but when you dig deeper and truly listen to what he did in the past, it becomes very sinister. Joey's childhood is what led him to a life of crime. In 1985, Joey would move to Colorado in what seemed like an unexpected move to everybody. 2 years later, in 1987, Joey was heavily involved in the drug trade. When one guy didn't pay Joey and his associates for a large batch of drugs, they got together and kidnapped him to recover the debts. They forced the man into a car against his will, and Joey would be charged with felony kidnapping and aggravated robbery. Joey would go on to serve 16 months in prison, where he would nurture his craft in comedy.
And the mailman was fucking his wife, so he killed the wife and his mailman. They gave him like 30 fucking shits. But the guy was a genius. And I'll never forget, he came up to me one day and he goes, hey man, here's a notebook so you could write your jokes in. And I go, notebook? I got no fucking notebook. I ain't got no, He goes, you don't write before you go up there? And I go, no. And this motherfucker looked at me and goes, listen, I'm gonna get out of here in about 2 years. If I get out and you're not doing stand-up, I'm gonna hunt you down and kill you.
What a motivational speech.
And I got out of prison, and I was a pussy. It took me 2 years to get on stage after I got out,
Yeah.
Kept giving myself excuses. And one day I just got up on stage.
Where was it?
Comedy Works.
What made you do it?
It was in Denver.
Comedy Works shouts.
When you were doing the shows in the prison, was everybody there? Like Blood, Crips, Whites, so everybody just decided, hey, we're gonna put away the beef and we're gonna enjoy this and we're gonna laugh at each other. There was no sensitivity, nothing?
Nothing.
That's the fucking beauty of it, man.
That was fucking amazing.
Joey continued to use LSD in prison as he couldn't test positive for it. He also started doing stand-up comedy in the 90s when he moved to Los Angeles. This is where he met Joe Rogan and would later blow up his career by appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience many times. The listeners loved the crazy stories followed by Joe's laughter.
Do you understand me, Joe Rogan? There's no fucking losers in my fucking house. Sleep in the garage, no dinner. But Pistol Pete knew how to fucking dribble Jack.
As humans, what we consider right or wrong usually evolves over time. The line between hilarious story and disgusting, unacceptable behavior has changed as well. Comedians tend to blur the line between joke telling and real stories. They might exaggerate a story in order to make it funnier, but in some cases, Joey would tell a true story that would leave the audience in shock without any laughter.
100. I had girls sucking my me Chewy. You think I'm kidding you? Yeah, you gotta suck my get up in the belly room. I'll make a call for you. That's the gateway into coming to Hollywood. Everybody knows that.
How many girls did you have do that?
Oh, 20 of them. I had this little blonde open mic chick dog that used to come up to the Comedy Store with a 20 and just take me up to the belly room and suck my and go do her set. She was tremendous.
Wow.
She finally freaked out. When she got to Hollywood, bro, she was beautiful. And when she left, she had dirty her nails were dirty. And then a year later, she wrote me a letter to the Comedy Store. You broke me. I kept shooting in her ear bar.
My problem is how he thinks he has all the answers and he's constantly trying to gatekeep stand-up. You have to do it this way or you're not doing it right. Dude was a drug addict who fucked over everyone until Joe Rogan made him his little pet project and saved his career. Now the guy thinks of himself as some kind of Sopranos-style godfather of comedy because he had a popular podcast for a few years. He flat out bragged about not letting women get spots unless they blew him. Dude's an utter piece of shit. Not really a fan of how he made young women comics suck his in order to get on stage as an opener. Real piece of shit. Never saw his stand-up. Whenever I see him in podcasts, he talks about having diarrhea or a wet fart every time, lol. Not hating, but I'm genuinely repulsed by that guy. Don't find him particularly funny, just a loud drunk uncle type of a character. Definitely got that Joe Rogan sponsorship though, so he's successful. Joey would also use the platform to promote his own website and comedy shows at the end of each episode, which is common for Joe Rogan guests. His hilarious stories paired with his upcoming shows led to many ticket sales and therefore great success, which Joey could have never imagined for himself. Joey was once married back in the day, but divorced in 1991, leaving him with an estranged 30-something-year-old daughter and ex-wife, who he hasn't talked to in many years. He also remarried in 2009 with his current wife Terry, and they have a daughter together. In 2020, Joey ended his podcast, The Church of What's Happening Now, so that he could move back to his home state of New Jersey with his family. He still continued a podcast, but not with the same name. Joey also starred in quite a few massive movies, alongside Robert De Niro, Adam Sandler, Jimmy Fallon, and Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2.
He's mine!
You want to get to him, you got to go through me.
He also voice acted in the popular video game Mafia 3, where he was actually in the game as a mobster character. Alongside his cocaine addiction, which he ended in 2007, Joey has actually enjoyed a great career for himself. Whatever you might think of Joey, it's safe to say that he's a changed man. Sure, he might reminisce about his criminal past, but that's all he's doing. Reminiscing, not repeating. It seems like his criminal douchebag era is far in the rearview mirror, and the fans are just there to enjoy the stories.